Thanks for joining us today for our webinar, When to Implement a Hybrid Labeling Solution, or How Best to Deploy a Labeling Platform. My name is Stacey Agem, and I'm a marketing manager here at Siegel Scientific. A few things before we get started. This webinar is being recorded. However, you are on mute and you won't be shown, but if you do feel uncomfortable, please log off at this time. And all registrants will receive access to a recording later on, and also the presentation as well. And we will have a roundtable discussion / Q&A towards the end of the session. So please submit your questions throughout the webinar. And then also please feel free to utilize the BarTender portal so you can opt into our emails and you can learn about more webinars that we have. And also we'll be having a survey at the end of the webinar. So please take some time to fill that out. That really helps us, and we're always looking for new ways to improve. So for our speakers today, you already see we have Michael Leo, Director of Product Marketing, and Lee Stevens, Principal Sales Engineer. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Mike Leo.
Great, thank you, Stacey, and thank you everyone for attending this morning, at least our morning. We greatly appreciate your time and interest in the webinar. And we'll look to spend the next 30 minutes on this agenda, where our webinars are exactly 30 minutes typically. I'll start with a quick introduction, and then probably the reason why you attend is I'll cover some of the questions to ask when you are evaluating the best deployment option for your labeling solution. So going through this sort of different options and the sort of questions that you can ask to see which one is best fit. Lee and myself will then describe how customers have deployed their different labeling solutions or their labeling solutions based upon the different deployment methods. And the format that we're going to follow on this is actually something new, at least for myself. It's going to be kind of a roundtable discussion. So we have some examples of customers and how they've deployed their labeling solution. And we greatly encourage questions and sort of a give and take discussion as best we can via Zoom and the question and answer feature. So please, as we go through this, if you have questions, especially questions that are specific to your labeling situation, put those into the chat or the question and answer function. And Lee and I will look to discuss that during the call. And then, of course, as Stacey mentioned, if we don't get to your question or, you come up with questions afterwards, we'll outline some steps for you to be able to ask those questions afterwards. So a quick note for anyone that's not familiar with us, we're Siegel Scientific. We're makers of BarTender software and now BarTender Cloud. Our company has over 35 years of history as the pioneer and innovator in barcode reading, label design, printing, printer drivers, and integration. We're a global company with regional support centers that provide 24/7 follow the sun support. We have support staff in 5 key geographic locations around the world. And this also includes the East and West Coast of the US. And you probably know BarTender as the leading label management solution that really helps customers to simplify and automate their labeling processes so they can design, create, manage, and print labels, RFID tags, and documents very easily. And our customers come in all sizes, from small to large, across all industries. It's estimated that 70% of enterprise labeling occurs in the manufacturing, warehouse, and logistics space, but our customers use BarTender there as well as a number of vertical specific applications. The goal is they're looking to get the right goods to the right locations at all times. We also help companies to improve their labeling practices to reduce costs, accelerate the logistics, and in a lot of industries, meet regulatory requirements, track and trace and manage what matters. So as you can see, today we have over 250,000 customers in over 175 countries around the world. And these customers are printing more than 50 billion labels a year. So BarTender's advantages have made it the #1 label management solution in the world. And most important, I think if you can remember, is BarTender is easy to use yet powerful. We see BarTender, and a lot of our customers see BarTender as the center of their center of their labeling ecosystem. It's connecting their business data, their business systems, to the labels, to their printers, providing the highest performance, optimized printing from anywhere, anytime. So with BarTender, customers have increased the overall efficiency of their entire supply chain while reducing IT operations, labor costs, and improving both internal and external customer satisfaction. And we are very proud that we are the #1 Gartner recommended label management solution, and all of the Gartner top 25 supply chain organizations and companies that use BarTender. So the main goal of this webinar is to help you understand the 3 deployment options for a labeling platform or solution, and how to pick the best approach based on your labeling needs and the resources that you have available. We'll cover the traditional model, where customers have installed a copy of BarTender software on premise, where they need to manage their own hardware and software. And as you probably are aware, this is the main use case today for our application, as well as many other software applications. But we'll also quickly then take a look at the next deployment model with the cloud, or software as a service, or SaaS as it's commonly referred to. This is a model where customers subscribe to a labeling service where they access via the internet, typically through a web browser. In this situation, customers do not need to manage or install any on-premise software and hardware, other than, of course, the machine that they're accessing the service with via their browser. And then finally, we'll look at customers that have deployed both on-premise software as well as their label printing via the cloud. And of course, we refer to this model as hybrid, where they are using both deployment options. So we'll start with the first deployment option, and we'll start with the questions that you can get an answer yes to, right? So basically you're asking these questions, and if you can answer yes to them, then really the best fit for you for your labeling solution is on-premise software that is installed and managed by you. In many cases, the first 2 questions, as you can see here, whether you can support on-premise IT hardware and software, and whether you have available IT resources, is a key decision factor as to whether you go this route or not. Lee, what have you seen as far as why on-premise is a good option for many companies?
Well, probably the biggest reason that I've seen is a need for very high speed printing. So you're on a production line, you have automatic labels, label application going on, and you are trying to create a unique label and apply it every 2 seconds, every second, every half second, sometimes even faster than that. And that is just something that, to make it work, you need the smallest amount of network latency possible. So you put your printing software as close to the print point as you can get it, and that means premise.
Great. All right, so next we'll look at questions that you can answer yes to that best fit running your labeling solution in the cloud. As you can see here, the first question is typically a key question, is are you or do you need to print labels for multiple locations around your organization? That can include regionally, across the country, or worldwide. Another factor to look at is whether you need to allow external access to your printing. A key use case for this, of course, is supplier labeling. So typically we've seen many of our e-commerce customers, they need to control and manage the printing that is done by their overseas suppliers. And with a cloud-based labeling solution, that's actually very easy to do and a very secure way to do it. Another key question, number 3, is whether you have seasonal or temporary label print volume. So seasonal, of course, is for companies that basically where their business vary by the season. But in terms of temporary label print volume, we've seen companies where they're actually running some sort of labeling solution already, but they have a special project, say a company or organization-wide effort to do an inventory. In that case, it's very easy to sign up for a cloud-based service. And that kind of leads to number 4, which is they're able to quickly deploy that and have sort of a turnkey, specific labeling solution to accomplish that specific project. They can complete the project and then move on. Number 5, certainly a lot of companies we're seeing are undergoing digital first or digital transformation efforts where they're moving their historic software applications to the cloud, right, to save on IT costs and maintenance costs. And certainly if you're upgrading your ERP system, your business system, your MES, WMS system, having your labeling solution in the cloud is an ideal fit. And finally, if there's a need to make sure that you have the latest software updates for your labeling solution, the cloud is an excellent fit in that situation as well. So that's sort of the number 2 deployment method. Next, we have sort of a summary of all the questions that we've seen. So and what we're seeing, that really the question that whether it's a best fit as an on-premise software or as a cloud-based deployment is that you need to ask these questions for each of your printing location, right? I think as you've gone through these questions, or as I've gone through these questions, it's really not an organization-wide approach, as cloud is appropriate for your entire organization or on-premise software isn't appropriate for your entire organization. It's probably going to be a mix or a hybrid approach where you look at each of your printing locations, and based upon the resources available, what you need to accomplish at that location is really how you determine what the best label solution is. So at this point, let us turn to some customer examples of all of the 3 different deployment approaches that I talked about. And as we look at these customer examples, again, I want to encourage a very open roundtable discussion. Please put your questions into the question and answer function in Zoom here, the Q&A function. And Lee and myself will look to answer your questions and to make sure you understand sort of the 3 deployment options and how they fit with your labeling solution or situation. So first, as we, for the customer examples that we listed here, these customers have found that they can install and manage labeling software and hardware at their printing locations. And these companies also, of course, have the IT resources to maintain their labeling solution. So Lee, can you take us through why some of these customers are choosing the on-premise approach?
Yeah, sort of go back to the original example I gave of high-speed production where unique labeling is required. Had a customer, they are very well known globally, had a problem with the labels on a production line where they were needing to apply a label to their boxes 2 every second. And what that translates to is you functionally have a latency tolerance of less than 1/4 of a second. And so that's where we put the BarTender print engine on a PC right next to the print to the label applicator, because we needed to minimize the amount of latency that was occurring across the network. And this is something that is best done on premise, because the cloud environment and the internet, you can't control the latency that tightly. So because because success in their labeling depended on hitting that beat constantly, you wanted to have it very, very close to it. Another circumstance would be is where you are relying on a different kind of trigger. You have it here with a weigh scale, and that's a great one, because those scales are often in part of that production line, whether it's for the logistics side or some other part of the manufacturing process. The data is being received and must immediately be applied to the label. So again, you have that latency concern. So these are times that you absolutely want to be on premise, because that's where you're going to get your best solution.
Great. What about, I know a lot of our customers are that have deployed software for their labeling are need to adhere to sort of regulatory compliance. Can you sort of maybe talk about, we have here sort of a lot of customers are FDA 21 compliant or require that.
Yeah. So the thing about 21 CFR Part 11 and the European equivalent of Annex 11, and then other equivalents around the globe, is they want to have a lot of record keeping, a lot of logging. And that tends to be handled best, again, by a premise system where you've got the security for the logs, you've got the ability to store and keep them, as well as having that good, tight communications with the actual printing engines that are working. So what we tend to find right now is that while a company that has 21 CFR requirements, there may be components that you want to use with cloud. The core of the system is still best if it's on a premise-based system, because you're going to get that secure logging functionality there.
Great. Let's see, maybe this is a good time also to do a polling question. So maybe Stacy, you could throw up a question here and see what our attendees think about.
Yeah, for sure. So first question we have is, are you using an on-premise BarTender software currently? So yes, no, or no, I'm currently using the BarTender software 30-day trial. And we're just going to give folks a few more seconds to answer.
And if you're not using BarTender, I definitely encourage you to try the 30-day trial. It is a full functioning BarTender system with only a couple of caveats there. And it will give you an idea of what BarTender can do.
All right, I'm going to close the poll. So let's see.
Oh, so a lot of existing customers already. That's great. All right. Well, I think that'll lead into our next little discussion here, which let's see. All right. So let us so many of the so let us turn to the second deployment example, which is deploying BarTender in the cloud, or deploying BarTender Cloud, or a cloud-based labeling solution. So for the customer examples here, many of these companies are typically moving to the cloud because I think I mentioned this, a lot of them have a digital transformation effort going on, sort of like a company-wide initiative where they have limited IT resources, or they want to manage those IT resources and associated costs. And so hence they're moving to the cloud. So here's some examples of customers that have moved to the cloud. Lee, maybe you could take us through why some of these customers are choosing the cloud-based approach.
Sure. There are a couple that come to mind right away. First, retail chains. And so one of the things that goes on in a retail operation is you are constantly generating new signs for your store. This is on sale, manager special. If you're familiar with the term planogram, you know what I'm talking about. But at the same time, these stores are all over the place, and they need to allow for some customization. And that is something that they are finding the BarTender Cloud is a marvelous solution for, because they can have the stores be able to log in. They don't need to have the VPN. They don't need to have separate software loaded on a PC and then try and figure out how to support and manage it remotely. People just use a browser. They go, they find the label they need, they put in the information they wanted to have, and bang, they're able to print out the labels. Planograms can have all of the necessary labels already lined up for them in a single folder, so the the managers can just very quickly go down through and print out exactly what they need to suit that new marketing position. The other one that I'm seeing a lot of are ones involving logistics, where they are either needing to have partners or suppliers generate logistical labels, things, if you're familiar with the term license plate or pallet label, you know what I'm talking about. While they're very similar, everybody has their own flavor of it. And trying to get all of your partners to use the correct label to do the drop ships to your supply points or your customers can be really difficult. And this is where cloud again comes in. You don't have to manage the remote end. You don't have to try and establish a VPN. You instead can provide your suppliers, your partners, your customers with access to the labels that are appropriate for them, and yet you retain control over it. And that's a really compelling argument for moving to cloud for these people.
Awesome. Thanks, Lee. Yeah, and I would also maybe add, like, I think I talked about this example, but we do have quite a few 3PL customers. And as you know,
Yes.
a 3PL has a lot of different customers, some long-term, some short-term. And we've seen one of the major reasons that they're adopting BarTender Cloud, and sort of, you can almost say, in some cases, it's kind of a hybrid approach, although some of these guys are new, is they're using BarTender Cloud just for a special project with a particular customer. So like a limited period of time, having that label capacity sort of in some regards segregated that they can dedicate to this particular customer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Actually, if I could just interrupt
sure.
there for a moment, you know, when you mentioned 3PL, they're obviously big in the logistics side. What we see are both sides find uses for the cloud, because some 3PLs are offering more services to smaller manufacturers, for example. And so they will provide the labeling service that the manufacturer is able to use to help labels comply with the marketing point that they're going to, but the 3PL is doing the fulfillment. And this allows them to generate the labels, and yet again, not have to have that infrastructure behind a traditional premise solution. And the other way around as well, where you have a major manufacturer that is working with multiple 3PLs. And this is again a way of having consistency with all of your labels and not have the infrastructure involved. But at the same time, both of those kind of organizations will also have most likely a need for premise software as well. And maybe I'm jumping ahead here a bit.
Actually, you are. So before we jump to the third deployment model, there's actually a question. Is there an effort to revamp the printer licensing server to be based on printer MAC addresses and not be sensitive to a port or driver?
Okay. That is one of the things that when it comes to cloud, you don't worry about, because cloud is not based on a per printer license. Cloud is based on a per label subscription rate. So now, as far as going to the premise side of it, I don't think you're going to see it going to just strictly the printer MAC address, because that doesn't address all printers. So a printer can be actually directly connected to a PC via a serial cable of some sort, today USB, but there are still people out there running 9-pin RS-232 cables. Those printers do not have MAC addresses. Likewise, it is very possible to spoof a MAC address. So there's an issue of access for one, and security for a second, that comes into play. And so I don't think you're going to see a movement away. I understand that can be frustrating at times, but there are ways of working with it, and the vast majority of our customers, once they understand how to best handle it, they have no problems. I'd encourage you to, if you are running into problems, call our technical support or call your partner and set up a call with us, when we can certainly help you walk through your challenges there.
Yeah, I would reiterate that I mean, one of the main benefits of being, if you are running on-premise BarTender software, is to take advantage of our technical support. So they can definitely help you with that. All right, so let us move on to the third deployment option here, which is hybrid. So finally, you know, we're seeing many customers evaluate and implement a hybrid approach where some printing locations have locally installed BarTender software and hardware to run that BarTender software, while other printing locations are supported on a cloud-based service. We actually started kind of talking about that in the previous slide, but this is the hybrid approach, sort of the third approach. And maybe again, Ashley, maybe you can take us through why some of these customers are choosing a hybrid approach.
Yeah, it's because a lot of customers of ours, they are not just one entity with one kind of printing. They have different printing needs at different points in their business cycle. So one I worked with recently actually was a commercial nursery, and they have a definite need for premise software. It's fast, it's efficient, it works really well with them. But then during their peak season, they're needing to generate these labels remotely. They're needing to have it only for about a 3-month period. They're needing to have other people be able to access and have that label, or in this case, it might be the information stake going into a seedling planter, something like that. These all are temporary. These are all that need to be created and set out there, and I don't know where they're going to be located. I just need to have them be the right label at the right point at the right time, which is what we do. And so they will take the template that they have been using for their printing internally on the premise system, and they make it available through the cloud for their high volume season, and allow their customers, their distributors, their suppliers to be able to generate these in a real-time scenario. And that's great, because at the end of it, it goes away. They don't have to be worried about all of the things involved with premise. And that's kind of whether it's time limited or there's some other kind of limitation, that's where we see hybrid stepping in. Is you look and you go, you know what? Don't think that you have a one-size-fits-all label process. You have individual label processes for different circumstances and different labels. And you want to look at each one of them and make a decision. Is this one that the advantages of cloud really gives me benefits on? Or is this one that, yeah, I really need that speed and security that I get with premise-based? And then with BarTender, you're able to pick and choose and combine the two. I think what most people will find is they will tend to be heavily weighted on one side or the other, but you want the best of both worlds. You don't want to be, you don't want to have to use the wrong tool because it's the only tool you have.
Right.
And that's what I like about it.
Awesome, Lee. Well, thank you very much for the great discussion, Lee. And to everyone, we're we're actually at 8:30 here. So we hope that we've provided you enough information to help you sort of evaluate the best way to deploy a labeling solution. So I think we will be providing a copy of this presentation after the webinar, as well as I think a link to the recording. So certainly take advantage of the list of questions that we had in the earlier slides to help you pick the best deployment method. And certainly, if you have any questions, please contact our labeling team. They can definitely help you answer any questions you might have and help you pick sort of the best deployment method. You can see there's a couple of URLs here that you can go to reach out to our sales team and some of the labeling specialists on the team to help you pick whether, on-premise approach with software, a cloud SaaS-based option, or again, a mix of both options, as Lee was talking about, sort of the best of both worlds. And so with that, I want to thank you again from Lee, Stacy, and myself for your time today. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. So thank you for attending.
Thanks, everyone.